You've been lied to your whole life about death, about what happens when this body breaks, when breath halts, when the world around you stops responding to your presence. They told you it's over, that you vanish, that the story ends. But what if they were wrong? What if the real illusion is life as you think it is, and death is the moment you finally wake up? This isn't religion. It's not wishful thinking wrapped in sacred robes. It's not a bedtime story for those afraid of the dark. It's what Edgar Cayce, America's sleeping prophet, claimed to have seen with terrifying clarity. Not a vision, not a dream, but a direct encounter with what lies beyond the body. And what he found breaks the rules. It crushes everything you think you know. Because according to Cayce, when the body dies, you don't end. You don't float away like a ghost in some mystical mist. You step out, clean, gentle. Like removing a coat that was never truly yours. There is no pain, no panic, no flashing tunnel of light, only peace, warmth, awareness. You see yourself from above, calmly watching the meat suit you once called me. Your name doesn't matter here. Neither does your resume, your bank account, or how many people clapped for you. Because here, you are not a personality, you are a presence. And that's when it begins, the great mirror. Not judgment, not damnation, a review, but not of what you did, of what you caused, what you felt, what others felt because of you. You feel their pain, their joy, as if you were them. Not punishment, understanding. This is the soul's curriculum, and everyone's enrolled. Cayce described it not as some celestial courtroom, but a field of awareness. Like the universe holding a mirror to your spirit and asking only this: did you become who you were meant to be? And if the answer hurts, it's not because someone is punishing you. It's because the soul remembers. Not who you were in society, but who you were beneath the noise. Edgar Cayce spoke not like a mystic trying to dazzle, but like a man who had walked through fire and come back with embers of truth still burning in his voice. He said there are realms, yes, realms beyond death. Not places with clouds and angels, but states of being, levels of vibration. Soul cities made not of brick and glass, but intention. Some are still and calm, like deep moonlit lakes. Others shimmer with movement like streams of change. But here's the twist. You don't go to them. You arrive where you already belong. Not by what you did, but by what you carried. If you lived with truth, with love, you rise. If you hid behind lies, you sink into weight. And still, no one condemns you. You're just standing exactly where your soul's frequency has placed you. It's not judgment, it's resonance. Cayce called this the sphere of light, a space with no ceiling, no floor, no walls, and no noise. Just instantaneous knowing. The way you wish thoughts worked, where words don't form but truths bloom directly into awareness. And there are others there, souls, beings, not ghosts, not monsters. Consciousnesses that feel like home, not because you recognize their faces, but because they remember you. That's the real afterlife. Not golden harps or fiery pits, but memory, feeling, recognition, and the staggering realization that you've been here before and you'll return again. Because brace yourself, the soul chooses to come back. Not as punishment, as desire, to grow, to love, to break, to become. He saw it. Souls preparing to incarnate again. Not forced, called, not assigned, aligned. He described it as a symphony. Light, energy, meaning all folding into one point, you. Your birth was not an accident. Your suffering is not meaningless. Your challenges were not bad luck. They were maps, choices, designed by you. This life is a classroom you signed up for, not to win, but to wake up. And that's the part most people miss. Cayce didn't shout, he didn't preach, he whispered, remember. Because deep down, you already know this. You've felt it in dreams, in the quiet grief of losing someone and still sensing their presence. In those moments when time bends and you feel like you've lived this before. You're not crazy, you're remembering. And the question isn't, what happens when I die? The question is, what happens when I stop pretending I'm not already more than this? When you realize the real death isn't of the body, but of forgetting who you are. That's what Cayce feared most. Not death, forgetting. And he said that most souls wander not because they're evil, but because they're afraid. Afraid to let go, afraid to forgive, afraid they'll be forgotten. But they're not. You're not. The light always finds its spark. The soul is never lost, only delayed. Because every pain, every tear, every heartbreak is not punishment. It's a reminder. You've strayed from yourself. It's time to come home. And this first part is just the beginning of that journey. You've been taught to fear the end, but what if the end is the door back to the beginning? Stick with me. In part 2, we'll follow Cayce deeper into the transitional corridor between lives, where choices are made, identities dissolve, and the soul is offered its next great invitation. And if something inside you is stirring, don't ignore it. This might not be just a video, it might be your moment. Before we go further, if you feel even the faintest echo of truth in what you've heard so far, pause. Subscribe. Not for the algorithm, but for yourself. For the part of you that's waking up, that's remembering. Because what comes next isn't just information, it's recognition. Edgar Cayce didn't come back with a list of facts. He came back with a wound, a sacred wound, the kind only those who've touched the other side carry. He said the hardest part wasn't leaving the body, it was coming back. Not because life is cruel, but because after tasting that clarity, returning here feels like crawling back into a cramped shell, a limitation. And yet he returned, again and again, not for glory, not for fame, but because he had to share. That's what truth does. It demands to be given away. He spoke of what he called the transition corridor, the space between lives. Not a place of waiting, but of releasing. The soul, no longer tied to flesh, begins to shed its anchors, regret, guilt, old identities, unspoken pain. It is not judged, but it feels. And that feeling, it's like standing in front of a version of yourself you could have been, not someone else's version, your own. And between the two, a distance. The soul sees every moment it acted from fear, and every moment it had the chance to love but didn't. But again, this is not punishment, it is invitation. The universe, Cayce said, does not judge, it offers. Some souls, frozen by grief, by confusion, by unfinished stories, remain in what he called the gray light. It's not torment, it's not peace either. It's a hallway with no doors, a waiting room for those not yet ready to walk forward or walk back. But the beauty is they are never alone, because something remarkable happens here. Beings appear, not in robes, not with wings. They have no form, they have no name, but you feel them like you feel love, without needing proof. They remind you, not of your sins, but of your light. And still, it's your choice. That's the paradox Cayce uncovered. Free will doesn't die with the body. In fact, it becomes clearer, cleaner. He said that many souls, when faced with the truth of who they are, don't run away. They volunteer to come back, to do it better. Not because they were forced, but because something inside them knew, this time I can become. He saw it as a kind of cosmic architecture, souls choosing their parents, their bodies, their struggles, not to be martyrs, but to evolve, to resolve, to transform pain into power, trauma into compassion, fear into awareness. He described a soul preparing to incarnate not as a decision, but as a symphony, a convergence of energies, of timelines, of meanings, all folding into one singular heartbeat, yours. And this is where most people flinch. Why would I choose this life, this body, these traumas? But Cayce's response was devastatingly simple. Because you trusted yourself. You knew you could endure. You knew there was something in you that needed to be forged in fire. And more importantly, you weren't alone in choosing. The universe collaborates with the soul. It shapes with you, not above you, not for you, but with you. This reframes everything. Your life is not a random sequence of chaos, it's a canvas, a mirror. A response to an ancient call whispered by your own soul long before you were born. And when you forget that, suffering becomes unbearable. But when you remember it, suffering becomes sacred. Cayce said the soul carries not its actions, but their essence. You don't bring with you how many things you did right or wrong. You carry the why, the intention. And if that intention was fear, your soul feels it like a weight. But if it was love, even love that failed, you rise. He spoke often of a silent breath beyond all layers of the afterlife, a state with no names, no forms, no memory, only essence, where you and what some call God are no longer two, but one. But to get there, you must pass through the fire of yourself, through honesty, through surrender, through the peeling away of everything that isn't you. And here's the truth, most terrifying and liberating of all. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to be real, to make mistakes, to get lost, to forget, so you can remember. And remembering, Cayce insisted, is the soul's ultimate power. He wasn't interested in converting you. He didn't need you to believe. He only wanted you to feel that strange, quiet pull inside you that says, you already know this. That what he saw wasn't a prophecy, but a mirror. And if you're still watching, it means you've started to recognize the reflection. In the final part, we'll travel to the edge of what Cayce called the soul's final destination, where form dissolves, judgment vanishes, and only one question remains. Did you live with an open heart? Because that's the one question the universe always asks, and it's the only one that truly matters. Keep walking. You're almost there. This is it. The place where everything you thought you knew about life and death comes undone. Edgar Cayce said that beyond all the layers, all the realms, all the shimmering corridors of light and remembrance, there is only one truth left. It has no voice, no face. It cannot be worshipped or feared. It can only be known. And when the soul reaches this final stage, it does not ask for entry. It simply remembers. Not who it was, not what it did, but what it has always been. He called it the source. Not as in mythology, not as a being with desires or demands, but as a field of silence so vast, so full, that it makes everything else feel like a dream. There, the soul has no name, no shape, no history, only essence, the original light. And yet, reaching it is not automatic. Not every soul flows there effortlessly, because even after death, we cling to pain, to identity, to the story. Cayce described seeing souls who could not rise, not because they were denied, but because they refused to release. They still believed they were who they had been. They held on to their image, their ego, their resentment like anchors. And so they wandered, not cursed but heavy. He spoke of forgiveness, not as a virtue but as a technology of the soul. To forgive is not to condone. It is to release. Not for the one who harmed you, but for you. Because every grudge is gravity. And every time you choose to let go, you lift a little closer to your origin. He said some souls weep, not from fear but from recognition. They suddenly see how deeply they underestimated themselves while alive, how they thought they were small, lost, unseen, when in truth they were always held, watched, loved beyond measure. Imagine that. Dying, and then crying, not because you're scared, but because you remember, because the full weight of how precious you were crashes over you like light. Cayce said that moment is what transforms the soul. Not divine fire, not celestial commandments, just the pure, undeniable realization that you mattered, that you were always enough. And when that happens, when the soul sheds the last illusion, something strange occurs. The need to return fades, not out of exhaustion but completion. The soul becomes so transparent, so weightless, that it no longer needs to do. It just is. It no longer seeks, it radiates. But Cayce also saw something curious. Even souls who reach that threshold sometimes choose to return, to go back into the body, into the chaos, into the pain. Not to suffer, but to love more, to grow deeper. He insisted, the soul does not return because it failed. It returns because it remembers its purpose. And sometimes love is not about escape. It's about embodiment, about bringing the light here, into the places that forgot it. Cayce said that the greatest pain of the soul is not losing the body, it's forgetting its nature. And the greatest joy is not in escaping life, it's in transforming it. You're not a body seeking meaning, you are meaning wearing a body. And every hardship, every heartbreak, every miracle and mistake, they are part of your map, your invitation. You don't have to be perfect, just real, just awake, just willing to look in the mirror and ask, did I become myself? That's the final question. And no one asks it but you. Not a god, not a judge, not a voice from the sky. Just the part of you that was always watching. The real you. The you beneath your name, your failures, your pride. And when that question is answered with honesty, everything else dissolves. Because truth doesn't need a witness. It is the witness. That's why Cayce always said, don't believe me, ask yourself. And maybe that's why you're still watching. Maybe something inside you didn't need to be taught. It needed to be reminded of who you are, of why you're here, of what waits when this fragile form finally breaks. Not nothingness, not oblivion, but home. If these words stirred something in you, do not ignore it. Like, subscribe. Not for me, for you. So the voice you heard today doesn't slip back into the noise, so it grows louder, clearer, until it becomes your own. Share this with someone else who might be ready to remember. Because remembering is contagious. It pulls others out of sleep. And when you're walking through your day tomorrow, at the grocery store, in traffic, sitting quietly with your thoughts, let the question echo, am I becoming who I was meant to be? Because the world on the other side isn't asking what you accomplished. It's asking, Did you live with an open heart? This is Psychopulse, and the pulse you feel right now? That's not just your heart, that's your soul, knocking. Will you answer? So now we stand at the edge, you, me, and the part of you that has always known. Not because I told you, but because something deep inside whispered, this is it. Cayce never claimed to be special. He never built temples, never sold promises. He just remembered a little more and chose to share. That's the key, isn't it? Not to preach, but to remind. Not to awaken you, but to show you that you were never really asleep. Just buried, just busy forgetting. But now, the forgetting is cracking, and in that crack, the light leaks in. Cayce left behind thousands of transcripts, but he always said the most important truths couldn't be written. They had to be felt, lived, heard in the silence beneath words. He spoke in riddles sometimes, not to confuse, but to protect, because some truths only land when you're ready. And if you're still here, you're ready. Ready to understand that death is not the end. It's not even a break. It's a shift. A transition from acting to awareness, from identity to essence. And what matters most, what always mattered, is not what you did, it's where it came from. Did it come from fear or did it come from love? That's the mirror. That's the reckoning. That's the real judgment day. Not a courtroom in the sky, but a reunion with your unmasked self. And in that reunion, there is no blame. Only understanding. Only, now I see. Cayce said the universe doesn't demand sacrifice. It invites alignment. In every crisis, every grief, every heartbreak is not a curse, it's an echo. A soul-level nudge saying, remember why you came. Return to yourself. He told the story of a grieving woman who had lost her husband suddenly. During trance, Cayce said something that shattered her pain into clarity. He hasn't left, he's near. He says, don't grieve, I didn't die. I just went a little ahead. And in those words, something in her broke. But not from sorrow, from being seen, from knowing that love doesn't end, it just changes rooms. And maybe that's what death really is. Not an ending, not a vanishing, but a doorway between rooms. A threshold crossed in silence. The body fades, but the soul continues its sentence, mid-thought, mid-feeling, mid-evolution. Which means everything you do now still matters, more than ever. Because there is no escape from meaning. You are not a random flicker of consciousness. You are not a mistake. You are not a statistic. You are an answer, an echo, a response to a question the universe asked long ago. Can love take form? Can light endure darkness without forgetting itself? You are that test, and every breath you take is part of that proof. Cayce's greatest revelation wasn't about death. It was about life. He said the truth is not in what happens after death. It's in what you do while you're alive. That's it. That's the sacred instruction. The secret hiding in plain sight. Because everything that happens after, the review, the return, the radiance, it's all shaped by this life, this choice, this moment. And if you're waiting for a sign, this is the sign. Not just a video, not just a philosophy, a pulse, the soul's pulse, psychopulse. Because deep down we're all hearing it, that faint rhythm behind the noise, that reminder that our crisis is not a detour, it's a curriculum. Our pain is not failure, it's friction for awakening. And the end is not the end, it's the beginning of remembrance. So as you move through the world today, don't forget what you felt here. Don't let this dissolve into the digital scroll. Carry it. Let it breathe inside you. Let it make you quieter, kinder, more awake. The final question isn't, what happens when we die? The question is, what truth will finally set us free while we're still alive? And the soul answers, not with words but with being. Be that answer. If this resonated, don't just watch. Respond. Like. Subscribe. Leave a mark for those who walk this path after you. A heart, a dot, a quiet, I'm here. So that those still on the edge know, they are not alone. Share this with the one person who's ready to remember. And maybe, just maybe, they'll start listening for the music that's been playing underneath their whole life. The one Cayce called the voice of the soul. We'll meet again, where words end and the real begins.